Thank you. It is really indeed wonderful that Radhakrishna has come out with another book in the series of the Chanakya or the Kautilaya's Arthashastra. As we know, the Kautilaya's Arthashastra is one of the most prominent contributions to the management and leadership, not only for India but for the whole world. But earlier, Kautilya's Arthashastra was restricted towards the political science and political economy, that kind of a context. Not many people really applied it to the corporate context and the management context. So in 1994, I had published an article, Management Lessons from the Kautilya's Arthashastra, which was published in the Indian Journal of Public Administration. And I think it was in 1998 or something, Radhakrishnan Pillai discovered that, as he mentioned. And then he came to meet me at the Indian Institute of Plantation Management. I was the director at that point in time. And then in our conversations, I asked him a very simple question. I asked him, do you know which is the best-selling book in India? So he was completely puzzled. He was trying to remember the name of the best-selling book. So he said, no, he mentioned some names. I said, no, that's not the best-selling book. I said, do you know the best-selling book in India is Chanakya Niti? He was totally taken aback. He said, no, how do you say Chanakya Niti is the best-selling book? Then I told him that whenever I have been traveling all over India from one railway station to another railway station, I found that everywhere there is this book, Chanakya Niti, which is selling very silently. People are buying, nobody knows. Without any advertising, without any corporate support, that is the best-selling book. And then I told him that if somebody writes another book for the corporate context, then that book is going to be the bestseller that will be selling no more on the railway stations but at the airports. Because at the airports there is a vacuum right now. Because Chanakya Niti is mostly in Hindi. And if you go to any northern station, you will find that book selling like a hot cake. Silently, nobody knows. So that was the idea, and he was already into the, a rigorous study of the Kautilya's Arthashastra. He has gone to Kerala and met his guru. And that was the starting point, and I think it took him around 10 years of that kind of a research and dedication and the hard work. And that is how the corporate Chanakya came, and then the rest is the history. So our meeting on that day, sometime in 1998, turned out to be a kind of a prophetic meeting in that sense. And now everybody knows that Corporate Chanakya is one of the best-selling books. Not only that, then he has taken that journey further. And now he has come out with this Chanakya in daily life. Now, what was so unique about Chanakya or Kautilya's Arthashastra? And recently I gave a talk at the Association of Indian Management Scholars. In my paper I mentioned about the governance models from India. If you look at what are the governance models from India, then the first governance model from India is basically the Kautilya's Arthashastra as a governance model from India. Then much later another governance model came, and then much later another governance model has come now. So I will quickly mention about these three, because I think that is very important, because his entire dedication, he has fully dedicated himself to the study of Arthashastra. There are very rarely you will find people in the modern world dedicating their life to the study of one thought current. But if all of us identify a thought current and dedicate our life to that, just like what Radhakrishnan has given, then you can see the idea of the success how much success you will get. So there are 2 or 3 things in Arthashastra. One is the concept of success, but success with happiness. Success with happiness. Today people are looking at success, but then they are unhappy. Most of them successful people are either burnt out or they are unhappy. And I think that's where the Chanakya in daily life, as he also mentioned, makes a sense. But another deeper meaning of corporates with this Arthashastra is in terms of the creating a powerful kingdom. Creating a powerful kingdom. That was the vision. Let's create a powerful kingdom, and the king must be an enlightened king. Otherwise, you can have a powerful kingdom, but the king is oppressive and despotic. Now, there are many examples of powerful kingdoms in the world, but the kings were, very oppressive and despotic. But that was not the vision of the Kautilaya's Arthashastra. It was basically the vision of an enlightened king. So, therefore, in today's context, it becomes a powerful corporate with an enlightened leader, or a powerful nation and an enlightened leader. And you can see we are moving in that direction. We are moving in the direction of the powerful nation, and now we have an enlightened leader who is leading us in that direction. And he has given us a new governance model, which also has a linkage with this Kautilaya's Arthashastra. Another dimension of Arthashastra was that the legitimacy of the actions of the leader are from the people. It is the people who give the legitimacy to the action of the leader, not because of the divine right. Now, the divine right model was not in India. The divine right model, which we study in the history, is basically coming from some other place. There, the right of the king is given by the god. But here in Arthashastra, God is not important. In fact, Arthashastra, as he has done a lot of deep research, is basically dharma, artha, and kama. Even moksha is not there. Moksha is your individual. You want to have moksha, fine, you do it. But king is not, the kingdom is not concerned. So therefore, Kautilaya's Arthashastra was the most secular document of management and leadership which anybody had produced in the Western world, much far beyond that, because this was written almost 2000 years or more, approximately. So this is something unique. It is one of the most secular, second secular document which India produced after Kautilaya's Arthashastra is the Constitution of India. But we forget that much before Constitution of India, here was the secular document for the whole world as a guide for the governance. Then India gave the second model of governance, and the context was very different. And that second model of governance was the model given by Gandhi. Now the context was very different. In the first case, the context was kingdom. How do you create a powerful kingdom? By the time Gandhiji came, the context was liberation. How do you liberate a nation? And what do you do after liberation? That was the second governance model, and that is where he gave the concept of Ram Raj. So again, Ram is the enlightened king. So Raja is the people, Swaraj. So we got another model of governance, which is the Swaraj model of governance, in which the democracy is driven by the Swaraj concept, and democracy is not driven by the idea of dominating the others. This world has seen two types of democracies, and this conceptual difference is not known to many people. One is the democracy as it is taught in the West. West became democratic much before India became democratic. But the Western democracy was, even though they were democratic, but they were using democracy to dominate others. For themselves, democracy, but then when they go out, they dominate others. So colonialism. So colonialism was a result of the Western democracy. Gandhiji understood this. And that is why he started pointing out the moral contradictions in the Western model of governance. And that is why he gave the second model of governance, that is the concept of the Swaraj, or the people-driven approach to democracy and the people-driven approach to leadership, management, governance. Though it's a different story that in 1947 we gave up. And we said, no, not people-driven, but government-driven approach. That is known as socialism or socialistic model of governance. Okay. So we rejected that model, even though that model was there, but we rejected that model at the thought level particularly. And now we have moved into the third model of governance. Because the second model of governance came from the liberation. Now we are a democratic country. So the context has changed. So the third model of governance has come. And that third model of governance is given by our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. What is that? That is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So that means democracy and development. So now when we connect all these ideas with the Kautilaya's Arthashastra, so we see one is the enlightened leadership, powerful kingdom. Second is the involvement of the people, Gandhiji, Ramraj. And the third is the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So these three models of governance are there now in India. And I think India can teach to the whole world that these are the three models of governance which we have, which everybody can benefit. And also point out the contradictions in the other models of governance, which have not been done at the thought level, at a conceptual level. Because we keep on having a lot of discussion, but we never point out the limitations of those ideologies or ways of thinking. Okay. So that, I think it is in this context, what Radhakrishnan Pillai has done is a yeoman's service to the whole world. I think not only to this nation, but to the whole world. And I'm sure these ideas will go far beyond the borders of India, and already he is getting invitations from outside, and he has made presentations in the universities and other places. So I always think back in terms of my 1994 article which I had written. Of course, I didn't get more time to create a book like this, but I feel very happy that Radhakrishnan and many others of my students have felt inspired to work on these themes of what today we call the idea of Indian management. Just like the American management had a global respect, just like the Japanese management got a global respect, today the Indian management is receiving the global respect. And for that, some of us have been working on this idea for last 20 to 25 years to 30 years. As you mentioned, Professor S.K. Chakravarti, Dr. M.B. Atraya, and my own work, my own book, which is titled as Management in New Age, Western Windows, Eastern Doors, was published in 1996. So today when we talk about Indian management, it is really a synthesis of the Western and the Eastern ideas of thinking. Why I called my book as Western Windows and Eastern Doors? Because windows are to look outside. So you look outside. You look at the atom, you look at the apple falling and this and that, and gain knowledge out of that kind of a thought process, which is known as scientific approach to create knowledge. And the doors are to come inside and then go outside. So that means experience. Use your experiential approach. Use the experiential approach to create knowledge. And that is the methodology of the East. So you combine the methodology of the West, which is the scientific tradition, and you combine the methodology of the East, which is the intuitive tradition, which is the spiritual tradition, and then only you will get a good Sapna house with the windows and the doors. Otherwise, if there are only windows, then what will happen? Will it be a complete house? If there are only doors, again. So therefore, today in the 21st century, time has come to combine the West and the East together. Then only there will be a holistic approach to management, to leadership, to practical things in everyday life. I think with that, I conclude and thank you very much once again. It's really wonderful.